narratives. I'm George Samueli. With me today, of course, is co-founder of the Gaggle, Peter Lavelle. Without the dogs, I mean, the dogs are just this is depressing. They're saying, yeah, they're not going to do this. And so today, Peter, the Democratic National Convention begins, and President Biden is scheduled to speak tonight, which is not exactly prestigious. I mean, you dump him on a Monday evening, before all the important events take place.
Well, let's put it this way: he's not unpacking. I mean, this is a day trip. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Somebody says the Google live stream. Really, did I? Maybe I made a spelling mistake when I sent it out. Does it say live stream?
It's a live stream. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, so somebody, Freudian slip. Okay. Yeah. I mean.
Well, it might garner attention. So.
It might, exactly. Yes. Yeah. Lie.
It's a marketing trick. That's all.
Exactly. Now the question is. Do you think Biden will announce his resignation today and say, effective, I don't know, September the 15th, I will no longer be president?
No, I don't think so. I think that is the October surprise.
So they're going to wait till October.
Yeah. Keep the focus. Well, see, I think with that, that would be how to put it, because it's difficult to frame. I mean, that would ultimately marry Biden to the Harris. It would marry the Biden administration to the Harris campaign, and I don't think they can't walk and chew gum at the same time right now. They're just focused on the branding, the rollout, the vibe of Kamala, because the stench of Joe isn't going to help her. Okay, so I think they're going to put that in stasis. I fully believe. I would be very surprised if he doesn't step aside in October. I'd be very surprised.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if he doesn't do it either. But I kind of wonder, though, whether this might not be the opportunity for him to announce that he will be doing so.
Well, then everybody's going to be talking about Biden. That's what.
Right. No, that's a good point. I mean, yes, that definitely. On the other hand, that might be the incentive for him. I mean, yeah, I want people to be talking about me. The one drawback about his enforced resignation is, of course, he's going to have to do his pardons. I mean, he's going to announce the pardons. That's, before he leaves the door. And so obviously he's going to pardon his family. That's not going to go down well. I mean, because obviously it will hurt the Democrats. On the other hand, the media are so enraptured by the idea of Harris that they'll just say, well, that's the stench of Biden, the stench, just leave with his exit.
That's why October makes even more sense, because it will be in the waning moments of the campaign. Biden is out. He's a blip. Okay, he pardoned himself. He pardoned Hunter. He pardoned all these other criminal elements. So what? It's all about her now. Okay, that's why I think that. We've talked about this before, George. His most important task now is not to arrange a ceasefire in Gaza, but it's his intervene in the fiasco called the Ukraine war. No, it's going to be his pardon list. That's the only thing he's got left.
Yes, that's right. That's exactly right. It's an interesting issue, and it's what we talked about with. Lionel on Friday, which is can the Democrats and their media allies pull a 2020 again? In other words, do to Harris what they did to Biden in 2020. Keep her under wraps. She doesn't do any impromptu interviews. Maybe other than Stephen Colbert. No serious interviews. Absolutely no news conferences, and then just friendly rallies, and the media continue puffing up with these polls. Oh, this poll, she's now 7 points. It's Texas is in play, Florida's in play, South Carolina's in play. It's a landslide in the middle. So can they do that? In other words, to do a repetition of what they did in 2020. I mean, I always think you can't do the same. You can't step in the same river twice. but who knows?
I think they're doing it, and they will continue to do it. It's working. It's working. I mean, one of the most, again, 2020 was the strangest election in our lifetime. Now we're getting a repeat, but in a very different way. If you look at polling on issues, Harris is getting clobbered.
Yeah.
Clobbered on the issues.
Yeah.
Particularly on immigration and inflation.
Right.
But again, I know how public opinion polls or questionnaires, I should say, are written, and you can get the answers you want.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
And plus, the issues of immigration and inflation impact different parts of the electorate in different ways. Okay, I mean, if you're upwardly mobile, you're in the Hamptons and stuff like that. Now, yeah, they work in the kitchen. What's the problem? Okay,
right. Yeah.
These issues impact different parts of the constituencies in different ways. There are people. I'm going to make people envy, I suppose, or angry, that if you go to a Starbucks, and I have no idea what the prices are in America right now, so you can mock me later. But let's say I'll have a cappuccino, and you're told it's $5 or it's $15. You say, okay, well, whatever, get me a cappuccino. Okay, there are tens of millions of Americans that can't even conceive of paying that for a cup of coffee. But there is the part, and there.
There is a part, but that I think, right. But that's solidly for Harris. So, I mean, that's no question. I mean, the people that you've listed, yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's the sort of the urban liberal and the corporate fat cat. They're absolutely happy with immigration, and they're down with Harris. But it's clear from the polls, as you mentioned, that immigration is a big issue, and the people who say immigration is a big issue are the ones who are against it. And what we know from Harris is she is going to keep the border open, and she's going to go beyond that. She's going to go for comprehensive immigration reform, which we know amnesty. And when we say amnesty, we're talking about 30, 40, 50 million. We have no idea how many illegals have come into the United States over the years since the last amnesty, which was in the 1980s. So that's 40 years. In 40 years, an awful lot of illegals have come in, and they're all going to start applying for an amnesty if she were to announce it. So that's a very big issue, and I think that is absolutely Trump's and the Republicans.
But see, we have to get the other side of the equation. One side of the equation is, I predicted this more or less to a T, is that this is the biggest massive campaign rollout we've ever seen in our lifetime. It is truly extraordinary, okay? And, Kamala Harris, it's a campaign of joy, okay? Meaning it's not a campaign of issues, okay? But the other side of the coin is Donald Trump. And, we discussed this with Lionel on Friday. I mean, I'm just baffled by this campaign, Trump's campaign. I'm just baffled by it, okay? I mean, he has so many things going in his favor, but I watched some of, obviously I don't watch the entire rally, but I look at fragments of it. And it's just not landing. It's not landing anywhere. It seems to be he's like shadow punching or something.
I agree.
And there's these personal attacks on her. I just think, what's the point? I mean,
I absolutely agree. I mean, I think that it's a strange phenomenon that Trump is now much less interesting than he was in 2016. 2015, 2016. He was, he was a real anti-establishment candidate, and he was really challenging powerful interests at, whether it's on the war, on the economy, obviously immigration, and the Democrats didn't know how to handle him because they couldn't quite characterize him. Now he has now become, which is very strange, a fairly conventional Republican. I mean, if you look at his campaign now, I mean, leave aside his personality, but it's a kind of a backdoor campaign. I mean, it's just there's nothing about this than
or Mitt Romney for our younger viewers. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say McCain. I think it's better than McCain. It's better than Romney. But let's say Bob Dole, who was a very kind of conventional Main Street Republican. Tax cuts, again, yeah, immigration and communist Kamala, yeah, communism. Just like if you remember the Republicans in the 80s and 90s would go on and on about the liberals, the Democratic liberals, Teddy Kennedy. They were every election they were running against Teddy Kennedy, even though Kennedy had long given up his presidential. They were still running against Teddy Kennedy.
But it never lands. I mean, we mentioned this earlier. Kamala Harris's economic plan is the Maduro plan. It's the Venezuela plan. Right. That doesn't land with people. No, it doesn't. Okay, maybe it does with the millions of Venezuelans that have found themselves in the United States because of oppressive American foreign policy against Venezuela. Right. Okay, it might land with them. There's certain congressional districts like Dade County in Florida. Yeah, might land with them, but it's not landing with everybody else. I've seen this my entire lifetime. It never works. I just don't. You got to shake these people up and say, you got to change your tune. It's not working.
No, I agree.
You're trying to convert people that have already converted to you, so it's a waste of time.
Right. No, well, I think that obviously with Harris, the line I think that I think will be useful, and I think they're going to do it, which is she will say anything at any time in whatever is the flavor of the month in order to get elected. So all of the positions that she's now taking, said, yeah, but she said the exact opposite, back when she was running for president. So like fracking, she was categorical about fracking. Now she's for it. And you can actually go through all of these various things like, taxes on tips. Yeah, but you were cast the vote in the Senate precisely on that legislation which imposed the taxes on tips. So she, basically she is a complete chameleon. I mean, she doesn't believe anything. She doesn't think anything. She's like a Hillary Clinton. It's just whatever is the flavor of the month.
Well, I don't know if you saw it, but she had that. Was it in? I don't remember which city it was when she had the rollout of her economic plan. It was about what I saw of it was about 5 minutes. It seemed like 5 hours. It was hard to watch. Okay. But a couple of things. First of all, what Harris administration will do. She forgot the caveat that you're going to need Congress to do this stuff. Okay. So that wasn't mentioned whatsoever. And then she started talking about price gauging. Now,
price gauging.
One may ask, what is price gauging?
Yes.
Well, no, she misread the teleprompter.
She misread.
Gouging. Okay, or maybe she doesn't know the word gouging. Okay.
No, that's right. But the interesting thing with that economic plan that we had a rollout was that the establishment media was left very cold. They were not enthusiastic. Because that price gouging thing, they were not going to buy into that. They're going to say, are you kidding me? Are you really going to say inflation is caused by price gouging? Are you really the gas stations and the grocery stores, which are absolutely marginal businesses? They have
marginal
profit. Exactly. That they are the ones who are causing inflation. So even the most sympathetic media, like the Washington Post, said that look, drop these gimmicks of price gouging, which itself is interesting because, if she does this again, that some of this joy and love and everything, might start to
it's really interesting. Again, we go to this chameleon metaphor or blank slate, is that next time she talks about it, her advisors are going to modulate it and we'll do the best we can based on our means. They'll tip it a little bit. No, this is actually marketing in real time is what they're doing. Okay.
Right.
And you're right, George. It's pitched to the power centers. It's not pitched to the electorate.
No.
The Democrats gave up a long time ago, with the exception of like abortion. They gave up on addressing the electorate. They're always addressing power centers. Okay.
Right. But abortion. But abortion
with the exception of abortion. Okay.
Well, I don't know, but I think it probably is a power center. I mean, it's the people who care deeply about this are often, very wealthy women,
but
women who are married to very wealthy men, and this is a big issue for them.
Yeah, but it does. It's far more complicated because it gets into belief systems and attitudes. It's not just a kitchen table issue, which he
No,
was
I mean,
addressing.
it's not. No, it's not at all a kitchen table issue. It's a very much a what's the word? That's it's a particularly selective issue, boutique issue. It's a boutique issue. And there are obviously a great number of young unmarried women, even who care passionately. This is their big issue.
Oh, I know.
Yeah,
I know.
yeah, and that's it.
You learn sometimes. Just don't talk about it. Okay?
Exactly.
Fuses.
This is what they care about, and which itself is, in a way, kind of odd because a lot of other people say, what's the thing, but that's pretty much the Democrats have that constituency tied down. For the people who care deeply about this, they're already locked into whichever party. So the other side, the ones who are against it, are also obviously locked in with the Republicans. But what again is interesting is the question of foreign policy. She hasn't anyway spelled out a foreign policy.
And she won't.
And she won't. And that itself is kind of interesting because when they put these polls and they say, well, the polls, according to the polls, people trust Kamala Harris on foreign policy more than they trust Trump. And they say, well, how does that work? I mean, she hasn't spelled out a foreign policy. I mean, how do you trust someone on foreign policy when they haven't even told you what the foreign policy is? It's so loony, these articles that you're reading in Washington Post. Oh, the juggernaut, the Kamala juggernaut. They say, wait, she hasn't said anything. How can you talk about a juggernaut if you haven't even said anything?
Again, for me, this whole campaign is an echo of 2008. I mean, it's how you feel about Kamala Harris. And if you don't like her, that means you're a bad person. You must support Trump. Right. It's very, very infantile in the way it has been phrased, but it seems to me it's working. And also going back to Trump, I don't know, George. I mean, it's sometimes when I'm watching his campaigning, I just feel like he's a spent force. There's a
little bit of that. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
a little bit of that. Yeah, yeah.
And I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, there's no shock value anymore.
No, and that's it. He just doesn't. He's not. Doing anything new. I mean, even though there's an opportunities,
a lot of things to talk about.
Yeah, to say something new, but he's just not doing it. He's just I did this as president and I did, but the problem is that that's already a long time ago, and you talk about 2017, 2018. That's 6-7 years ago, and ultimately you can't run on what you did 6-7 years ago, and apart from anything else, people are going to point out, critics like us will say, yeah, but it was you who did that bloody stupid thing of sending the javelins to Ukraine. Why'd you do that? What did you get by doing that?
The assassination of Soleimani, getting out of the nuclear, the Iran nuclear deal. We go on and on and on.
Yeah. That's it. I agree that he's just not doing anything interesting, and yeah. I mean, I guess on a thing, he needs to sharpen up those rallies. I mean, you can't meander on for an hour and a half. I mean, we gotta be much more tightly focused so that people are, I got the message, whatever that message is.
The likability quotient in all of this is really evident. Look, Trump versus Biden. Trump looked attractive because Biden was just so decrepit, okay? But now they cooed him, they switched her in, right. And now likability contest, okay? Do you like Trump? No. Do you like Kamala? Well, I don't know. She seems kind of nice. We haven't heard much from her, but from what she has to say, that's the algorithm they're drilling into people. Okay.
No,
they're like, she's just this blank sheet. No, she's not. She's actually a neoliberal to her core, and actually quite conservative on some issues, to be honest, like the criminal justice system.
Yeah, but that's a long ago. I'm not buying into that.
Well,
Yeah.
they say people change. I don't know. Your tune can change.
The key with her is that she does whatever is the need of the hour. I think it's a huge mistake, and Trump made that mistake in 2020, sort of going back a number of years, and you say, oh, look, he had this very conservative view on criminal justice, and therefore I'm going to try and get the blacks to vote for me. It failed completely.
Tulsi Gabbard did it against terror and landed.
Yes. And why? Because it was in the Democratic Party. It was in the Democratic Party primary process. Yeah, the Democratic Party voters were absolutely, I don't like that. But now it's the general election. So if you're trying to persuade, the general election and say, she locked up criminals or people who were, she was a real brutal DA, they'll say, yeah, that's pretty good. I mean, if you're running on the issue of crime, rampant crime, uncontrolled crime, it's a little odd to start attacking your opponent for locking too many people up.
Fair enough.
And it didn't work for Trump in 2020. That was a huge mistake on his part too.
What would work? What do you think would work? Should work for Trump at this point?
Well, I think that he now has to focus on what she has done recently. And I think that
which is,
well, I think it would have to be the fracking, that she's an enemy of fracking. And I think that she's very lax on immigration. I think you've got to hit her on immigration. Hit her also on the fact that in 2020, during Black Lives Matter, she was cheering on the rioters, and she was, putting up money to get people out on bail. I think you have to hammer her that she's not good on crime. If you do the Tulsi Gabbard thing, I think then they'll say, yeah, wait, that's pretty good. I don't mind a tough prosecutor in the White House. So I think those the immigration, crime, inflation, those are Trump's issues. So he has to.
Well, I think that the discursive approach is, and I know a lot of people in the GOP were loath to say the Biden-Harris administration, but they actually start saying it now, okay? Because that is her record. Her record is Biden's record, okay? Yeah. She was in the room, quote unquote, when he made these decisions. So I don't know why that isn't being hammered more. I don't know, maybe because, I don't want to sound self-contradictory. I mean, issues should matter, but since it doesn't seem to matter, you need to need a way to finesse it. And the people around her, I just kind of marvel at it. I mean, when I see these ads about her, this thing, this was made in Hollywood. This is like a Disney film. I mean, this has nothing to do. This is like a Netflix trailer.
Right. No, that's exactly it. I mean, it's like you get an advertising campaign. You get the top advertising firm in the world, and you ask them, how do we sell Kamala? Somebody that nobody liked just a few weeks ago. Somebody that the Democrats thought was an absolute liability. Anyone on Kamala? How do we sell that to the public? And then you get these very smart guys and say, how about joy? Joy. Let's do joy. That she's spreading joy. She's joyful and Trump is dark. Oh, that sounds good. And then of course you pay a huge whatever fee.
Well, Joe, I don't know.
Advertising firm.
I think we saw that on display again when the quote unquote rollout of her economic plan. Pay attention to it, everyone. Look at just 2 or 3 minutes of it, and I think you'll notice the following: she speaks slower. She doesn't shriek. No laughing. Oh, no laughing is allowed. Okay. She slowed down her tempo. She looks eminently reasonable. That's what they want to say. Just reasonable. That's what they're doing. It's really interesting. And I think that it wasn't really the content of the speech that was important, but how it was presented. And it was a different person, okay?
Right.
And she does seem to have the capacity to learn something.
Right. Well, yes and no, because then when she goes off the teleprompter, she's back to her...
there you go. That's my point.
Yeah, but that's the thing. it's, and that's the question I asked a moment ago: is can you do that? Can you absolutely ensure that she's not going to go off the teleprompter
How
and
many
then
days?
go to her, her ridiculous
How many
rambling?
days do we have? How many days do we have left?
It's about 80 days, something like 80.
About 80
Yeah.
days. Yeah.
Right.
Yep. Okay, so this week it's shot because it's going to be, what the communists in Eastern Europe like to call propaganda of success. So we're going to have a whole week of propaganda of success around the convention, and then we're going to get, then it's Labor Day, and then they're off to the races. I mean,
Right.
It's steady as she goes. That's what I say. I mean, that's what they're doing. I mean,
Right.
by this time, with no even friendly interviews scheduled.
It doesn't look like they're going to have any friendly interview schedule. We know that there'll just be this one debate. There won't be any other debates. They're not going to schedule any more.
I'm not sure it's going to happen still.
It may not happen. Yeah, it may not happen. But it's going to be difficult for Harris to get out of it because she was the one who was kind of constantly prodding Trump. Oh, Trump is getting out of it. Trump is scared. Trump doesn't want to debate. So it's going to be difficult for her to get out of it. It's possible. But there won't be any more scheduled. And I would imagine, they're going to keep the things. But the question is still, and I don't know the answer to that, which is, will the media accept this? I know lots of parts of the mainstream media will accept it. The Washington Post obviously will accept it, Politico, or a lot of those Daily Beast, Newsweek, all this nonsensical thing. But you kind of wonder, though, are there some reporters who think that, we're kind of being made chumps of? I mean, we want to maintain at least some self-respect. This is a presidential election, and we have a candidate who refuses to sit down and answer questions. I mean,
that would be helpful.
I may just accept that, but I just wonder whether there might be some, even someone like Maggie Haberman. I'm no fan of Maggie Haberman, to say the least, but she may think, well, I don't know, this is kind of contempt for me.
Yes, but then the stench in the room is, so you want to help Trump? Well, go ahead.
No,
Stick your head up, boy. Let's see. You want to help Trump, okay? Nope. There goes the mortgage on the Hamptons house gear.
That's it. All right, let's see if we have any interesting comments. We'll say from our friends on our locals. So we have Leafy Bug, who says state-run media in Australia described Republicans pouncing on Harris's big laugh and quirky statements. And then, and so, I mean, I don't know what I mean by the state-run media in Australia, but I mean, there's no question that, the liberal kind of mainstream media in most of the rest of the world, it's sort of the NATO land, and I regard Australia as NATO land. They take their cues, all of their cues, from the mainstream American media. They just parrot all the talking points. They don't do any reporting of their own. They just simply, what's the New York Times saying, what's the Washington Post saying, and then they just repeat it. So, I'm sure, go to Australian media, they're just saying, oh, Trump's lying. Trump is putting out false stories. Kamala is a breath of fresh air. Kamala is joyful. So that's what I would expect. I mean, that's what we get in the UK media. And in much of the European media, and quite sure that's what you get in the Australian.
Yeah, media. I mean, George and I have made obvious reference to the cackling of Kamala Harris, but I'd like to point out to everyone, sure, I mean, it's a very awkward way to present yourself, but I've also often wondered, what is she actually cackling about? What is so funny? And so, if you want to you can focus on the cackle itself, but what is motivating the cackle? That's always kind of fascinated me. Okay. Right. So, I mean, Hillary Clinton had her weird laugh too. Okay. But she was a truly maniacal person. I don't think Kamala Harris is maniacal. Again, that's one of her selling points, I guess.
I kind of agree. I mean, that she's not, she's not.
She presents herself as not being maniacal. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think she is like Hillary, very ambitious, and but I don't think she has um, Hillary's very, very powerful sense of entitlement. Well, maybe she has, but I mean, she's kind of been thrust into this position. But um, Hillary, was obviously felt very entitled. Need to be president. I deserve to be president. I have to be president. And any attempt to prevent me from being president is driven by the most malevolent motives, by the most malevolent people. I don't think Harris thinks that yet.
Well, I mean,
Hillary thought.
there's a huge difference there, and I'm not trying to give any credit to Hillary Clinton, so keep that in mind. But she has a lot of battle scars as she came up. Okay, I mean, you can say a lot of things about Hillary Clinton, but she is a fighter. Okay, I mean, and a very vicious one at that.
Right.
I mean, come on, this is everybody. George and I have been political junkies probably since we were reading our cereal in the morning. Okay, I mean. But this is truly astounding how somebody has been vaulted to the very, very top with doing no work whatsoever.
Nothing.
Kamala Harris, okay, she knows that people laugh at her behind her back. She's not an easy person to work with. She knows she's not the smartest woman in the room. Okay, but I mean, a lot of people go through life feeling that way, and they don't have battle scars. And so here you are at the very pinnacle. And I mean, you have to wonder what Hillary thinks wandering in the woods. Why didn't I get so lucky? Why couldn't I happen to me? Okay.
Right. The thing was with Hillary is that over many years, people had an opportunity to gauge her, using gauge in the correct way, gauge her and to like her. She was a very, very unlikable person. From the days that she was, even when she was the wife of the governor in Arkansas, people didn't like her, and she was always a pain for her husband, who he was a very good secondhand car salesman, but she didn't have any of that, and so in a way she was always kind of dragging him down, and so
and he didn't like her. And he didn't.
Yeah, really like that's right. And so there, it's just funny the way he has disappeared. I mean, it pretty much, her career is based on her husband. I mean, that was her husband.
I think they're on night 2 of the convention, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I'm sure she will speak, but he comes across as kind of decrepit these days. I don't know. I mean, he seems very old, so I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, when's the last time he gave a good speech? It was
I can't remember, but
2008 when he introduced Barack Obama. That was a barn burner. That was a good speech.
Yeah, but
that's a long time ago. Okay.
That was a long time ago, and he, if I just go back to 2016, he seemed old, and so he, and I've seen a few pictures of him recently. Again, he looks old. So looks a lot older than.
Well, that's what Hillary does to people.
Yeah, that's what I would imagine.
So I don't know if anybody saw that. God, going back through the torrid history of Russiagate, but I don't remember. I think it was part of the 2020 election. And it looked like Bill and Hillary were like in some kind of beach house. She was sitting on a couch and he was like on a couch that was like an L. So he's like kind of behind her. And then she started the Russians, the Russians. And Bill was behind her. And he's kind of, and once he starts hearing what she says, somebody started playing, what is it? The Simon and Garfunkel song. What's the song?
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
The Sound of Silence. Okay.
The Sound of Silence.
Okay. And so, that was the drama. And he's just like, not this again. He's had to put up the entire lifetime of this crazy woman.
Yes. Well, that was it, because I think in that scene that you're talking about, she was also looking very wild. Her hair was wild, and she looked really looked a little demented, to be honest.
Animated, we would say.
Yeah. Because they work on her. When she ran for president in 2008 and 2016, they worked on her. They make her hair coiffed and put nice clothes on her. But this was just spontaneous. Her hair was wild.
And she looked like a grandma.
Yeah,
She
yeah,
looked
yeah.
like
She hadn't bothered to get dressed or anything. So, so, this is the Hillary that he is used to. He has been seeing for all his life. And yeah, that she was just
It
absolutely.
doesn't forgive Bill for anything, if you know what I mean, everybody.
No,
Doesn't get
yeah, that's
no
right.
free ticket there.
Anyway, Leafy Bug says Bob Dole had some very occasional moments when he'd let loose his inner populace. That I think is correct, because, of course, there was that classic moment, Peter, you know this, in the 1976 convention when he was Gerald Ford's running mate, when he talked about the 100 years of Democrat wars. And he said, all of these wars that we have got into were all waged by Democrats. Going back to, obviously the Spanish-American War. He talked about the World War I, World War II, Vietnam, Korea. And he went into this, and of course he was then really attacked for that. But I think that was the voice of the Midwest. I think that was the Midwest that was speaking through Bob Dole. He lost a lot of that in later years, but at that moment in 1976, it was the classic Midwest.
But it was kind of an echo of Sarah Palin in a
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it was like a twinkle in his eye.
Right.
That is part of the electorate that is underestimated and defiled all of the time, because every single time you have that kind of sentiment, they just rub it out. Oh, yeah, isolationists are isolationists.
That's right. It's isolationist. That's isolationist. But then in later years, he became an ardent interventionist, big interventionist in Yugoslavia. Took a lot of money from various lobbyists, and so that moment, that was, I think, it was a glorious moment in 1970.
He was a very bitter man, and he's very much like a John McCain. They're very much the same in that kind of. It's my turn. The bitterness, entitlement, and all of that. Okay?
Yeah,
get off the grass.
That's right. No, he was a bitter man. He was seriously wounded, and I think he was in pain for much of his life. I can't remember. I think it's either his right arm or his left arm was.
Yeah, whatever it was, he couldn't lift it any more than like.
Yeah,
this.
Exactly.
And when he would, here's a, a normie politician, so a suit and tie was required, and putting a jacket on and off was painful for him all his life.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. But the bitterness that really came out was in the 1988 fight against the elder Bush. And I think that, when you said the populism, he felt, he's this Midwesterner, and Bush was, the essence of this kind of waspy
patriarch.
Exactly. His father had been a senator, Prescott Bush. He had money. He was born into money. He went to Yale. They just eased his way into big jobs, and never had to worry about anything. And that kind of resentment really came out. He really didn't like Bush, and there was a moment when he really snapped and he said, "Quit lying about my record." And I think that sank his campaign, because he looked so angry and unpleasant that, no, I don't think you're going to get this.
Well, maybe I shouldn't keep bringing it up, but I mean, the anger element that Trump displays. I mean, I don't want to sound facetious here, everyone, but I would like to see a little bit more of a joyful Trump. Okay, just to steal a word. Okay.
Right. Well, he is kind of joyful. I mean, I think that, the one thing about his rallies is that he's actually very funny. He tells these anecdotes, which are actually quite funny. I mean, he kind of, keeps adumbrating on those anecdotes, but they're actually quite funny. So he's, he really does have a humor. I mean, he's got that New York Jewish humor about him. It's very, very funny sometimes.
Well, Tucker Carlson remarked upon that. Tucker Carlson has been hanging, in the orbit of these people his entire adult life, living most of his life in the D.C. area. I mean, remember, everyone, he was friends with Hunter Biden when they were young. Okay, And Tucker even said that, Trump is a really, really funny guy. Okay. He's a real free spirit. He's lighthearted and very generous in many ways also.
Yeah, no, I agree. Anyway, we got the next up. We have our friend Steve K9, who says, "I agree that calling Harris a commie is stale, but she is in reality far more to the left than Ted Kennedy ever was. Need to remember that she was rated as the most liberal senator." I think that's fair. I mean, I think that the problem, and that's okay. I mean, I think if you look at her record, her voting record in the Senate, they say, yeah, that's liberal. The commie thing is very difficult because price controls, yeah, that's a kind of stupid idea, obviously.
Yeah, but Nixon did it. Okay.
Exactly, Nixon did it. I mean, a lot of politicians have done it, and of course, it always ends in you've got a much bigger mess than you had to begin with. But that in itself doesn't really make you a commie because you come up with some nonsense like price control. But you're absolutely right in terms of her record. Yeah, you could say, yeah, she was rated as the most liberal senator.
Yeah, but most liberal. These are mostly social issues and things like that.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and plus everyone, even though, granted, obviously the Kamala Harris was a senator, she's never been a power broker, okay?
No.
She's never been at the center of anything. I mean, I don't know if she ever introduced legislation. I mean, she's probably signed on to a lot of things.
Right.
And of course, going back to the speech, which is boilerplate, if you look at it closely, is that somebody else wrote that for her. I mean, do you think that she has an affinity for any of those policies? I tend to doubt it. Again, look how she delivered it. She was far more focused on how she was delivering it over what she was actually saying. Look at it, okay? She's taking seriously her handlers, very seriously.
Right. I think that's it. I think that's exactly what she's going to be doing, and we'll see whether that works. But for instance, the social issue now, when that guy who was from ICE, that there's that footage when she was grilling the guy who's the head of ICE, and
the guy that was on Fox all the time.
Exactly, right? And she was accusing ICE agents of being like the KKK. You can play that. I think that's going to be part of the Trump campaign. You say, hey, this woman who's calling ICE agents, in other words, the people who are actually trying to make sure that people are here actually legally. She's calling them the KKK, and she's browbeating and harassing this official because it's not like she was debating him or making a point. She was just basically browbeating the way that senators and congressmen do. Hey, I'm speaking now. Don't interrupt me. But I know I'm speaking to. This is a yes or no question. But this is a yes or no question. I mean, it's not any serious discussion. So you keep running that, and I think that will hurt her.
But it really gets down to, George, who makes the difference in these elections, okay? Trump supporters support Trump, okay? So, I mean, what I've always looked at here, again, forget the generic poll, forget nationwide polls. That is just to get clicks and useless conversation. But look at certain congressional districts in the battlefield states, where's that 3 to 5% that traditionally tip one way or another? Is talking about ICE going to impact them? I don't have an answer. I don't have an answer.
Yeah, I think it will. Immigration is the type of issue that can.
Possibly. But that's how it should be focused on.
But that's it. But that's the point. I think immigration is an issue that people feel strongly about it, and it's not just something. Oh well, if I'm a Trump supporter, so I'm against it. If I'm a Democrat, then I'm for it, because I think there are Democrats, people who traditionally would vote for the Democrats, who I think do feel strongly about immigration. So I think that does.
And I want it to be, George, because as George and I have said, and I think quite recently, if Trump screws this up, and I still think this is an election for him to lose. I'm at that point right now. Okay, we may not see a Republican in the White House for a generation.
No,
this might be it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree, and I think I mean, yeah, I mean, obviously, we can look at these polls and read all sorts of things. They're pushing it. They're pushing a narrative, um, and they're basically doing what they always do in these elections, which is to demoralize the
Right.
opposition. To say, hey,
Right.
this is all
Right.
over. It's really pretty much over.
Why even vote? Why get up in the morning?
Yeah, exactly. Look, it's done.
Why ruin your
Yeah.
day?
Exactly. Yeah. So that, I mean, that's clearly what they're trying to do, and so we just have to see. So next week is obviously the bump, the bump from the convention is like, whoa, look at this.
Whoa. The bump that the establishment will give her.
Exactly. Because it's funny, Trump didn't get any kind of a bump from the Republican convention. Well, that's
He
very
didn't get
odd.
a bump after being shot.
Yeah, exactly. Even from that, you would have thought, there'd be a huge sympathy.
George, I have a question for you that may be unanswerable, but I want your opinion. Do you think that changed Trump, that experience?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know yet. I haven't noticed it, but it's possible. But to be honest, he'd already been fading a little bit even before that. I mean, I somehow he's just not doing, he's not challenging. He's not really being as radical as I think that he could have been. And this was even before the assassination attempt. And so, people are looking. His supporters, the people who really who've been energized, they've been waiting since 2021. They've been waiting for Trump to return, and they're energized. And they say, hey, we now want some drastic changes. We want to deal with the deep state. Want to deal with that once and for all. We've got to dismantle the administrative state. We've got to end stupid wars. So there's been a lot of expectation, and he hasn't really met any of those expectations. I mean, he doesn't talk about dismantling the deep state. He doesn't talk about getting rid of the administrative state. I mean, it's the things that his supporters who've been waiting for him to return, they're not getting anything from him.
Well, I think another approach that lands flat, at least it does with me, if that wouldn't have happened if I was president. I'm tired of hearing that.
I'm tired too. I'm tired too, because it's
it's unknowable. Okay,
it's unknowable. Exactly, it's a counterfactual. So what's the point of a counterfactual? I mean, it's amusing to speculate what might have been, but ultimately it's pointless. And so I think I think he needs to set out some kind of a much more radical, as he did in 2016, and without that, I think he's vulnerable, because I do think that a mainstream Republican cannot win an election in the United States anymore. I mean, I just don't think some Romney type Jeb Bush or any of those. I just don't think they can win a presidential election anymore.
Well, particularly, particularly since those kinds of Republicans don't object to a Democrat's foreign policy.
No, that's right. And again, this was his opening. On Ukraine should have been an opening, and I think just saying, hey, well, it didn't happen while I was president. That's just that Lindsey Graham might like that, but that's not going to get you.
Yeah, but I mean, Lindsey Graham would be the first to line up to impeach Trump if Trump changes position on Ukraine. Lindsey Graham would be the Brutus.
Absolutely. No question. Anyway, Leafy Bug says that was a retread from Biden's ridiculous shrinkflation campaign. Whip inflation now. How'd that go for Ford? It went terribly for Gerald Ford.
It went terribly.
Yeah, whip inflation. Yeah, that was awful. Remember Gerald Ford? He supported the Equal Rights Amendment, which in the end never went anywhere. But Ford really, I mean, the Democrats were so in love with having Gerald Ford there because he was so completely useless. I mean, they knew they could roll him and get him to support all of their agenda. So yeah, he had a Republican president in favor of the Equal Rights Amendment.
Well, with Gerald Ford, he so deeply wanted a sense of legitimacy.
Yeah.
I mean, and that was just something that haunted him, which really shouldn't have, because he was a very accomplished congressman and widely across the aisle, really respected. People like Gerald Ford. He was a good legislator, but being vaulted up, he just didn't have what it took, and he didn't have the fire in the belly.
He really didn't. And I think that's. But I think if you remember, he became House Minority Leader after the 1964 debacle, because that was the big Democratic landslide year in 1964, and the Republicans were almost wiped out. And so it's like Buggins' turn. Who can become Minority Leader? It was Gerald Ford. But when you're a minority, you basically accept that your role is to facilitate the work of the majority, and that's what he did. And I think he got used to it. Basically, well, the Democrats set the legislation, they set the agenda, and my job is to get that through and do a few kind of hems and haws, and maybe we can just tweak this a little bit, tweak that a little bit. And I think that's how he saw his role. I mean, he was as House Minority Leader in an overwhelmingly Democratic legislature.
Everybody, if you hear a background sound, that's Buddy snoring, okay? And he's out of reach of my foot, so I can't, nudge him.
He's snoring because he said, I can't stay awake for this. I mean, the tip jar is so awful. Don't wake me up. Whatever you do, don't wake me.
It's just hot here. That's why. Okay. Jeez.
And then Leafy Bug says her foreign policy, Kamala's foreign policy is, I'm speaking. This is literally all there is. So that was this event which I think was staged.
Of course.
Where some pro-Palestinian supporters heckled her, and she did zing. Well, if you want Trump, and if you want to not deal with the existential climate crisis, then go vote for Trump. Otherwise, I'm speaking. And the crowd just erupted. Oh, I'm speaking. A totally phony event. But let me ask you, since the subject has come up, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think there's going to be any serious pro-Palestinian demonstrations?
Well, that's interesting, because I've been sniffing around, as it were, looking at what other people say. I think there's certainly a sentiment there, and I think there's going to be those that will want to make their voices heard. I'm talking now, but the way the convention is structured, I don't even think they'll get in the door. I don't think so either. I mean, these uncommitted people, they're just going to put them in a different hall and with a plasma screen. Okay, I mean, this is going to be. Look, everyone, I mean, I know it feels good to say, oh, this is going to be 68 all over again. And a lot of people weren't even born when they say that. Okay, I was very young, and I watched it on TV, and my Republican father was horrified by what he saw, which of course helped usher in Richard Nixon, for good reason. But I don't see how they're going to get their voice heard, no. George. I don't see the mechanics of it. Okay. No. And I just think, I mean, look what they did to the Bernie bros. I mean, they corralled them and, basically shoved them out and all of that. Right. I mean, and the Bernie bros were, they had a coherent, political approach and what the Democratic Party should be doing. I mean, I was very sympathetic to his campaign, to be honest. In 2016, I watched Trump and Bernie. Those are the only. Everybody else was just noise to me. I just thought these two are kind of interesting here, but they're not going to let that happen. No, this is a foreign nation. There is no way they're going to
Right.
allow anything happen to this coronation.
Right.
No way. Okay.
Right.
I mean, I don't even want to think of, because I'm not going to say them here, but the dirty tricks that may be played on some of these people.
Right. No, that's right. It's the powers that be. You know, they're usually very good at cracking down on dissent, but occasionally, you know, they're caught by surprise. So they were caught by surprise in '68, and so it didn't go smoothly. One should just remember also in 1968, this was in Chicago, and of course, Chicago in those days was run by the legendary Mayor Daley. And inside the convention hall, there was this senator. I think he was from Connecticut, Senator Abraham Ribikoff, and he spoke at the convention, and he said about the the Gestapo tactics of the Chicago police, and there was Daley sitting right behind him, and then Daley started yelling. I don't want to say the word, but calling him the K word. I don't know what people know exactly what the K word. We're on YouTube, so I want to be careful not to use the word. But it was interesting because you could actually see Daley was happily mouthing the code because he was just so enraged by Ribikoff talking like this about the Gestapo thing. It was a different Democratic Party. That was a much more robust, manly kind of party where they thought this was perfectly appropriate.
Well, they have
a Jewish senator.
I hope some people will get my drift when I say this, but this is a managed democracy.
That's right. Exactly. That's right. That's exactly right.
So to answer your question, George, I would be surprised. Okay. That's all I'd answer. I'd be surprised if they get their voices heard, because I'm talking now that basically sent a message out is that I don't want to talk about genocide. I don't want to talk about, ceasefire. I don't want to talk about any of these things.
That's right. I don't want to talk about it.
I want to talk about the environment. Okay. I mean, this is, and I want, have equity in immigration, which means amnesty. This is what I want to talk about. Okay. You got to interrupt me. Fair's fair. You had your piece. Okay. Now ushers take about. Okay.
That's right. That's it. No, that's exactly. Yeah. That's exactly the way that's exactly how she do it. But it's very, very funny how the media nonetheless run with that story, that ridiculous story that she is perceived to be more sympathetic to the rights of Palestinians than President Biden was. This is totally made up. Absolutely, completely, utterly made up. No evidence for this whatsoever. But, she's perceived to be more sympathetic. Perceived on the basis of what? On the basis of you writing these stupid articles, and then somebody else repeats your articles, and then it becomes a reality.
Well, the New York Times said it, so it must be okay.
Right. And then you just got to create this. So that's my foreign policy. It's perceived. That's the New York Times said. She's perceived to be more sympathetic to the rights of Palestinians. She doesn't have a policy. I mean, it's not like she's got a policy on the Middle East to do anything to do with the Palestinians. She's just perceived by somebody or other. You always use the passive voice.
Okay, everybody, George mentioned the K word. That's a pejorative word for someone that is Jewish. Okay.
Exactly. Okay. If it were just on locals, I would use the word, but since on YouTube, I don't want to say
if someone put it out, these are issues that are in East Berlin. So when that's mentioned, we're in East Berlin, everyone.
Exactly.
And Stasi are listening. So we try to avoid East Berlin. Okay.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And then Leafybuck says, her I'm speaking line, which people obviously think is a real winner. Do they realize how off-putting that is? I don't know whether they realize it. I think it's a winner.
But I mean, they're trying to attribute a kind of a masculine persona to her, and I'm talking right now. Okay, right. Don't you interrupt me. And also, it's interesting. Don't interrupt a woman. That's right. Also.
That's right. That's right. That's exactly right. And that's a very interesting point, which is that the whole shtick is that oh, she's a strong woman, strong, accomplished woman is strong. But how dare anyone at all say anything mean, anything derogatory about her? Because that's just outrageous. And so I don't know how many articles I've been reading about, oh, Trump is, using his usual sexist, misogynistic attacks on Kamala. I thought she was a strong woman. I mean, if she's a strong woman, then what do you care that he says mean things about you? Oh, she's really strong, but don't ever say anything mean about her.
No, I mean, this is just kind of a sublime sexism that they manipulate all of the time, okay? Or a situation when you can't win, okay?
Yeah, that's right.
They always they put it, the discursive message of you can't win no matter what you say, okay? See, they're more interested in rolling out a brand than solving the country's problems.
Right. No, that's right. And then Steve K9 says, agreed, the Tulsi Gabbard tactic would fail miserably, as Trump supporters would indeed say, locking out blacks, okay with me. Yeah, I think so. I think that what Tulsi did was in the Democratic nominating process, and there she was obviously making a pitch to Democratic Party activists, Democratic Party liberals who would indeed not like a prosecutor who was locking up blacks. But if you're doing it in the general election, I think that's something that wouldn't work. And Trump made this disastrous decision during the 2020 election when he was, on the one hand, he was the law and order candidate because the cities were burning. So he was talking about law and order. And then he starts attacking Biden for his 1994 crime bill and saying, oh, you were locking all these people up. Well, make up your mind. What is it? You want to be law and order and crack down and lock people up, or you're going to attack your opponent for locking too many people up? It was confusing, and you never want to start confusing people in an election.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And what the rollout of Kamala, again, it's a vibe. She is a vibe. She is a meme. Okay,
right.
That devoid policy, because at the end of the day, what's most important, George, is joy. Yep. That's what's most important.
Joy. I feel joyful. That's a joy. What a stupid.
Well, I mean, but also, again, there was criticism of her rollout. But I think that was just kind of a reminder: is that you don't have a wish list. We do. Okay, right. Don't get ahead of yourself, hun.
Right.
Okay,
that's right.
But why not talk about policy?
No one's going to do that. No, it's like it's like
people,
joy. Yeah,
well,
but
people in power are satisfied with the status quo.
Right.
What do you need? The economy is doing great. Don't you know that?
Doing great.
And that's this is really an ostrich with the head in the sand. What problems really? I mean, Trump is, he's exaggerating everything. Okay,
right.
We're the ship's been righted. Joe Biden did a good job. We're going in the right direction. Yeah. We're respected in the world. Blah blah.
Right.
That's what they want. That's all they want.
Yeah.
Okay?
No.
Everything's just fine.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. But I'm thinking again the branding. I mean, in that TV show that you liked, Mad Men. I remember when they came up with that. The ending, it comes up with that concept about the Pepsi generation, and that whole big advertising campaign, which was so successful for Pepsi. In a way, it's so joyful, and all these people around the world, they're united, drinking Pepsi. There's that, it's like it takes an advertising genius to come up with this nonsense. So it's like joy. Oh, it's joy. You just invent this out of nothing. Joy. That's what it. Right. Everybody now repeat that word, joy.
We don't want genocide to get in the way of joy.
Joy.
What are you doing?
I can't conceal my joy.
Just as an aside, Coca-Cola always made the best commercials. Anyway, I think.
Yes, I think so. I think so.
Yeah,
too.
But I mean, that's going back to an art that that was so amazing in our time. Now everything is just AI and all that. It's so unimpressive. Okay,
right.
I mean, some of the TV series that I watch now. I mean, technically, production-wise, they're exquisite. I mean, it's just extraordinary.
Right.
But the content, well,
right. Yeah, no. Anyway, then Leafy Bug says, being a failed border czar, covering up Biden's senility, yes. Oh dear, too late for the latter, too slow. The news cycle has moved on. That is on Trump. That, I mean, I think that's true. I mean, I think that's the way. All of these things are real issues, and that she was a part of this. It was a conspiracy essentially to rob the Democratic Party supporters of a choice. They were denied a choice as to whom they wanted as their leader. So no one challenged Biden because Biden insisted he would run. They knew that this was Biden was senescent. He couldn't possibly complete the term. Harris went along with that. And then, boom, you push him out of the way and then he gives it to Harris. So you are essentially robbing the Democratic Party of their voters. So this is an obvious scandal. I mean, clearly it's a
yes,
scandal.
but George.
Yeah, okay.
But what about the joy?
Joy.
That's
see,
it. You're right. I mean, it's very difficult for the Republicans to critique the democratic or lack of democratic process in the Democratic Party because it's not their lane. But I mean, that's what I shouldn't be surprised. But I am that while Democrats, you have no voice. You clap and you cheer. I'm talking now, but what about your voice? You've given it away. I mean, this is truly extraordinary. But then again, let's not get down to brass tacks here. It's if you really want, there's Trump. He's waiting for you. Okay, we know who he is. Okay, or why don't you join the joy?
Okay. That's right. Yeah, no.
I mean, I'm not trying to mock it. I'm critiquing it. This is what a critique. This is what they're rolling out, and it's pretty smart. Okay, I mean, it won't solve any problems, obviously. Okay.
Right. Yeah, no, that's right. And then Dan Rock says something that I think is an interesting issue. He says that Kamala is just drunk and drugged all the time. That's an issue, that there's no question that Kamala imbibes quite a lot. Now, that may well become a problem for a president who tends to imbibe, because once you're a president, it's not like anyone can stop you from drinking. I mean, it's not like, well, I think you've had one too many already. I'm the president. I can drink however much I want to. So that may still be something that could bubble up during the election. The issue of her alcohol consumption. Because
thank goodness Nancy never became president.
No, that's right. But I've seen things with Kamala where it's clearly she's drunk out of her mind. And
everybody, it's been mentioned, people bring it up every once in a while that Nixon was a drunk and off it. He was not.
He was not.
He was not.
And again, it's you can drink. I mean, there isn't an issue about drinking, but if you are really imbibing seriously, and you have to start making major decisions about national security and so on, that is an issue. I mean, Eagleton was dumped from the ticket because he had serious mental health issues. He had electric shock therapy, and say, well, you can't have this person as president who has had serious mental health issues in the past. But by the same token, you can't have somebody there who has a problem with alcohol. I mean, you could be, just make a decision about fighting a nuclear war, and then and the president is drunk out of her mind.
Well, maybe Biden would have benefited from electrical shock. I don't know. Okay. Yeah. I don't. I'm not really sure how much that plays into it, but I mean, it just marvel at the fact of what you're seeing being manufactured out of whole cloth. It's just I called it right at the moment of the coup. George and I were talking about. I said, just wait. This is something that will, Mad Men will be. The writers of Mad Men could never even contemplate. Which is a great series, Mad Men. I liked it.
Right. And then Leafy Brugg says, I think Harris started to believe she was a genuine contender just a few months ago. Well, I guess that's an interesting issue. At what point was Harris herself brought in to the discussions? There was obviously a coup attempt in the works, so they were clearly had been moving against Biden for some time, and so therefore they had obviously had to have brought in Harris into their discussions. But it's interesting at what point was it? Now, I mean, it's clear that when they made that decision to have the debate in June, which was a strange decision, that this is what they were. This was in the works, so they kind of planned this to have this debate in June, basically to be able to get rid of Biden before the convention. So Harris had to have been involved at that stage. And again, incidentally, this does show Trump's lack of judgment. Trump should never.
Oh, yeah.
He should never agreed. I mean, he got totally rolled on this. I mean, this is not the first time he got rolled by agreeing to this debate in June. I mean, he says, oh, well, that's because if I hadn't agreed, they would have said, oh, Trump is scared. So what? Let them say that. You know, he will say, no, I think the first debate should be after the conventions. That it always has been. Why do it now?
I really would like to know, Kamala Harris, she's watching the debate with Trump. Is she at home? Is she at her own private bar?
Right.
Does she have a barman in her private bar? And the first 3 minutes expires of the debate, Kamala Harris is at the bar on a stool. She looked at the barman and said, "Make it a triple." She knew that instant that she was a contender. She knew. Okay, because and plus, I mean, George and I have been over this ground so many times. I mean, it was possible, but was nearly impossible to push her aside. I mean, it was just too hard to do that. Okay, so I wonder what she wrote in her Dear Diary. Okay, or what she told her the first what's he called, the second man? What's her husband?
Oh, that's good. Is he? I think he's the second. Is that what it is? He the second husband?
Second husband or second? No, he's second man.
Is this second man?
Does anybody know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
does
first
know?
lady.
Yeah, that's right.
Does anybody know? He's first gentleman. Thank you.
Oh yeah. Is that he will be the first gentleman? But what is he now? Is he what's his current standing? Is a second gentleman now?
I don't.
Right.
Why do we need a term for him?
No. So now we have a very interesting question from Stone River, who says, to whose relative net benefit are the pro-Palestinian demonstrations in Chicago likely to redound, Harris or Trump? What do you think, Peter?
It will not be an issue. Neither party is going. I mean, the Trump people are fanatically Zionist. Okay, so I think that they would like to use it. But how do you criticize Harris? She's not helping the Israelis enough. Well, that's pretty. That's a hard argument to make. Okay, it's just simply too hard to make. I mean, particularly Bozo Blinken, I guess, is in the Middle East right now. His 9th visit. Why you don't have anything to? I mean, what I'm just saying is that the issue of Palestine, Gaza, has just been neutered in this campaign, I think.
I kind of agree with you. I mean, the point is that overall, I don't think there's much interest or sympathy for the Palestinian cause in the United States. There just isn't. I mean, I don't think people care for them very much. And to the extent that people look at these demonstrations, waving the Palestinian flags, they don't like them. They think they're fanatics, they're lefties, they're Muslims. So if they see these demonstrations, I think the public probably is unsympathetic. But if the Democrats say, well, they have nothing to do with us, then I don't think it redounds particularly negatively to the Democrats. So it doesn't. I don't think it helps the Republicans very much. At least I don't see how it helps them very much.
If you don't talk about the issue, then it's not an issue.
It's yeah, I think so.
Okay, and God bless the people that it is. I'm absolutely completely support their angst and anger, and I think it's all righteous. But it's just not going to. Okay, they're uncommitted. Okay, I mean, just look at their time. They're uncommitted. Okay, they don't. There's not even a signifier. You know, we're
No,
against this
but
foreign
that's it. I
policy.
mean, it's just there's no, there isn't really very much a sympathy for that for the Palestinian cause. I mean, you got the other than you got the Arab Americans or you got some Muslims, but it's a very small constituency. So it's not it doesn't have any real resonance. Unlike the issue of Israel, and that's the one
Well,
that has big resonance because you have the obviously the very powerful Zionist lobby, the Israel lobby, the Jews who are extremely powerful in the United States, and so on. So that you don't want to, that's a group that you don't want to offend. But the rest, I just don't think it's.
well, the problem is here, as righteous as the Palestinian cause is, and I truly believe it is, but the problem is in American politics is the binary when it comes to this issue are who's more pro-Israel than the others. See, that's how the issue is framed and discussed. And so when you have that very limited confines, then you don't really have a way to interject something into that conversation.
No, there isn't, and that's the point.
And both parties are going to keep it that way.
But that's the thing that there was a time that you had policymakers who were sympathetic to the Arabs. I wouldn't say they were sympathetic to the Palestinians. I don't think they cared very much about the Palestinians, but nonetheless, they felt that it was in the American national interest to have good relations with Arab countries. And you can't have good relations with the Arab countries unless the United States is seen to be trying to do something about originally about the Palestinian refugee issue, and then the Palestinian statehood issue. But that element has kind of disappeared. I mean, I can't think of any kind of faction that exists.
It's gone. It's gone.
It's gone. I mean, if you look back to George Bush the elder, and then James Baker, and Brent Scowcroft, some of the people around Bush, that was the old WASP establishment, and they were, again, they grew up with the idea that we need to have good relations with the Arabs, and we can't have good relations unless we try to address this issue.
Yeah, but Bush and Baker were defeated.
Bush and Baker were defeated. Exactly right. Exactly. So now that's just gone. I can't think of any figures in political life who argue that. I mean, even Thomas Massey only argues on a kind of libertarian. He's saying we shouldn't be subsidizing any state. And therefore, he says, I'm against subsidizing Israel because I'm against subsidizing any state. But I can't think of any other political figure who talks in terms of.
Well, it's interesting
to have good relations with the Arabs.
Massey survived his primary because he framed it that way. That's how he framed it. Okay. He had Cori Bush and Bowman. They framed it in a different way, and they were slaughtered. Okay.
Right. Exactly.
Oh, I think it's a truly dreadful situation we're in. I mean, you can't talk plainly about a genocide that the U.S. government is supporting. It's really, it's heart-wrenching for me, and it's a sign of our decrepit political.
Yeah, but it's not. That's not. That isn't going to change.
Well, I'm just taking a moral position here. I mean, George and I have been doing this for a long time, and we don't usually mix up morality and politics because they don't really go together very well.
Right. Okay? No, that's exactly.
But you can still at the same time express a moral.
Right. But that's the thing. I mean, I think we try to analyze things in terms of national interest. So that's.
And what is possible?
DJ 53144. Thank you so much for your tip. And he says, Apple and Buddy Political Consulting, biting into challenges with loyalty and integrity. Yeah, I think that the Apple and Buddy Political Consulting is saying you gotta dig deep into your pockets.
Consultants buy homes in the Hamptons.
Yeah, if you want first-rate political consultants, you got to dig deep. I think that's their position. Lynn, 1995, nice to see you again, Lynn, says, they are doing a remarkable job promoting Harris. I would not rule her out. No, we're definitely not ruling out.
I'm not ruling her out.
Absolutely not ruling her out. So I think is going to be formidable. And then Lynn goes on, Harris and her team are very calculating. Yes, absolutely. Look what they done since the Trump-Biden debate. Unfortunately, people are easily brainwashed and forget quickly. That, I mean, all of that is true. And I think that's very important to keep in mind, that these people like Harris and the people around her are extremely cunning. Again, one could say that, well, they're not, they're not intellectual, and and everything else. So and again, you said this, Peter, and I think, and I agree with you that calling her Harris as dumb as a rock, or as thick as two planks, or whatever, it's not effective, because we don't really know whether she is dumb as a rock. What we do know is that she's very cunning. And you can be as thick as two planks and be extremely cunning.
Look, she didn't win.
As is Waltz. I think they're both very cunning.
She didn't win one vote in 2020. Right. And now, August 19th, 2024, she's leading a major ticket. Yeah. That's called cunning. That's not dumb as a rock.
No, I agree. I agree. Yeah. So, and that's now, of course, it's helpful when you've got the media in your pocket, but it means that, hey, you got your work cut out, and it's at the very least, this is going to be a tight race. Mm-hmm. And then William Taylor says, I always assume that every candidate's policy is infinite war, yes, using money borrowed against our future pensions, yes, unless they vociferously say otherwise. I think that's exactly correct. Of course, any anti-war statement gets you labeled as unserious and probably a kook. That's exactly right. And the anti-war candidates are often they pop up and have a brief flurry, and then they kind of fade out. Now, sometimes it's because they are insincere, as was the disgusting creature Howard Dean, which I think people have forgotten about. I think Howard was an absolute fraud in 2004 when he tried to present himself as an anti-war candidate. He wasn't, and he got dropped by John Kerry thoroughly deservedly. But I think Ron Paul is, I think, a genuine candidate. But the problem is, you can't get the money. I mean, you're not going to get the big bucks behind you. And then Ron Paul faded away. But of course, I think Ron Paul was hampered by his sort of libertarian economics, and I think that's just not going to get you anywhere. I mean, people aren't going to start voting for you because you're a follower of Ludwig von Mises and all the rest. I think that did for Paul.
But George is right. There's no money behind it. That's it.
Yeah, that's right. But it's very interesting that Trump sort of went down that path in 2016, being the kind of anti-war candidate, and that had a resonance. And now he doesn't have that anymore. But the interesting thing is that he's still attacked for being an isolationist. He's still attacked for supposedly, he wants to pull out of NATO.
During his administration, he gave the Pentagon more money than they requested.
Right. Yeah. But he still gets beaten over the heads as supposedly he's an isolationist. So William Taylor says, of course, any anti-war statements get you labeled as unserious and probably a kook. Yeah, that's exactly right. So even when you've denounced all of your anti-war sentiments, you still get labeled as a kook.
Yeah, well, the Pentagon can get almost $1 trillion a year unaccounted for. They're not held accountable. but how many tens of millions of Americans don't have decent health care? It's just, that's America.
Yes, yes, that's right. But interestingly, it's also in the UK where you got Starmer kind of removing the pensioners' kind of heating allowance. Oh, budget. Tight. We got to tighten our belts. Got to look into the budget. But there's money for Ukraine. And it's just, again, that tells you, where's democracy going, where you're doing things the public obviously does not want. The public is suffering, and you go on, winning these elections. You've really got, like a managed political system. You have this pro forma election that we all get obsessed about, but it means absolutely nothing. No real public interest is served.
The fact of the matter is, just look at demographics. Boomers are rapidly retiring right now, rapidly, okay? Boomers are about 1946 to 1964. I think that's essentially the boomer generation. And when you get old, you need health care, okay? And they're bulging all across the Western world, okay? And it's expensive. Okay, right. There's no doubt about it. Okay, but you have to make choices. What's important to you? What's important?
Right.
Okay,
right.
And to support those welfare programs, because they are, you need to have a cadre of younger people earning good wages to pay for those. Okay, so the Western world chose immigrants, poor immigrants, migrants. Okay. They didn't choose a younger generation after the boomers to make sure they had good educations, well-paying jobs, which they could be taxed to pay for these programs. Okay,
right.
And this is all gone. I'm fundamentally pessimistic. This is a 25-year plan to reverse this. Nobody's talking about it. No one.
No, I think it was done. It was
only going to get worse.
Yeah, that's it. It was done deliberately by the George Soros types, the Bill Gates, the World Economic Forum, which is they want to discourage people from having children, and then to bring in migrants to do all the work. I mean, that was done. That was the deliberate plan, and we're seeing the effects of it. And so this wasn't just, it just came about accidentally. No, that was done deliberately.
And we have to point out is that if you look at the post-World War II two generations, so going up into the 1970s, unprecedented growth, economic growth and prosperity, and this was the basis of political life in the Western world. Now, if you're going to have these same people that you're going to immiserate, just like George said, the UK government is taking away certain allowances for the elderly to keep warm in the winter. Wow, you really must be strapped, okay?
Right.
And this is going to have such a destabilizing impact. And then again, the UK is just a harbinger of what's going to happen. You favored these groups of people over other groups of people. And this is how the fabric of society starts coming apart.
Right.
Okay. And then the difference is that, in the 1960s, 50s, and 60s, they had the money for it. Okay. At least in the United States. Okay. Now they don't.
No, they don't. That's right. But then again, you've always got the methodology of political repression, and I think that's what we're seeing in the UK and in other places, which is that the government can crack down on dissent. You can always just label it as far right and extremist and so on, and you've now got the mechanisms in place to suppress any dissident voices. And so DJ 53144 says, to heck with the debate, I want to see a prize fight between Imam Khalif and Kamala Harris. So Iman Khalif is the gold medal winner, who it is alleged is a woman. It's claimed that she's a woman, even though there've been no obvious tests made on her. She certainly doesn't look like a woman, and she doesn't even sound like a woman. But
doesn't punch like a woman.
Yeah, that's right. But she won a gold medal because she hit women a lot harder than they'd been used to. So that I think Iman Khalif would probably beat the living daylights out of Kamala Harris. So that would not at all nice. But the kind of interesting thing again is that we don't know anything about Iman Khalif because we're told, no, she's a woman. Don't you dare ask any questions about it. But no one's ever explained, well, how do you know this? I mean, what's the
Well,
basis?
the Olympic Committee spokesperson, I think what he says, well, we saw her passport.
Exactly, that we saw her passport, which doesn't seem very scientific to me. But you can't do any tests because, of course, that's sexist, racist, misogynistic. Right. You can't do anything, and that's it. But again, she doesn't look very feminine. She doesn't sound very feminine. So,
but it doesn't punch very feminine.
No, that's exactly right. And then we have DJ says Trump will say that Harris didn't criticize the protesters enough. Yeah, I think that's probably what Trump would say. I mean, I think that and the strange thing that they've been doing, which I think just bizarre, of championing Josh Shapiro, and somehow the Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania, wasn't selected as the running mate because he's Jewish. And so they're running, like you're jumping in. Oh, we're going to support Josh Shapiro. Has Josh Shapiro asked for your support? He hasn't asked for your support. So you're running in. This is the worst position you can ever be when you're running in to support somebody who's not even asking for your support. He's actually attacking you and saying, oh, this poor person, he should have been the running mate, but he wasn't named running mate because he's Jewish. You don't know that at all. You have no evidence for saying that Josh Shapiro was not selected because he was Jewish or because of his position on Israel. You have absolutely no basis for saying that. But somehow Republicans think that that's a winning slogan. I can't believe how dumb that is.
Yeah. It's incomprehensible. An issue that they have locked up. Why are you doing this? This is
why exactly?
You're wasting your time.
You're wasting your time.
Third, nobody knows what you're talking about.
No, exactly. That's exactly right. And who the hell cares? Why are you carrying water for Josh Shapiro? He's not asking for your help. So why are you doing this? It's you're absolutely right. You're wasting time. At this stage, you're wasting time. I mean, the time is of the essence. So Leafy Bug, thank you very much, Leafy Bug, appreciate it. He says, thank you, gents. A slightly personal question. Are you living in the country you plan to grow old in? I left Australia in my 20s thinking I would never return, yet career and children mean I'm back. I suppose my question pertains to putting down roots in places other than home, the place you spent your formative years when you don't have roots in that home. Okay, what do you think of that, Peter?
I have deep roots here, so I'm not going back home. I'm going to spend the rest of my days here. So I have no doubt about that at all. So
yeah, go on. Yeah.
I'm very happy about that. Okay, I really enjoy my life in Moscow. I have for a quarter century. I mean, this is home to me. I have no other home now.
It's, I mean, in my case, I'm living here in Hungary. This is where I was born. However, if I think about what do I feel most nostalgic about, where is my nostalgia? My nostalgia is to England. I mean, I feel nostalgic about England because I grew up in England. So it's like my formative years were in England. That's where I spent my childhood. I went to school, university, and everything in England. The problem is that the England that I remember, I think, just doesn't exist.
No, that's right. I was going to say exactly the same thing.
So exactly,
the America I grew up in doesn't exist. It's gone.
Yeah, and that's why I'm always thinking, well, if I were to go back, I say, what the hell is this? Where am I? What is this country? It doesn't resemble the country I grew up in. And so it's what happens when years go by. You kind of have a kind of very rosy, memory of what was once, what once. I'm kind of sounding a little like Kamala. What,
Well, that's where
what
we
is it? What
differ.
she said? Unburdened by what burdened us, or whatever it was.
We
So
differ there. I don't really particularly have fond memories of my childhood, so I guess that's why I'm so happy where I am now.
right, right. Anyway, so it's a difficult question. I mean, it's but where I mean, you've gone back to Australia, and I'd be interested to know whether the Australia of today is the Australia that you remember. Because you might remember a much different Australia. I mean, again, as you know, I remember an Australia that was very different. The Australia of the 1960s and 70s, in my memory, seemed very different from the rather nasty, oppressive Australia of today. So I'm kind of curious of how you feel about Australia. And then W. Baker, thank you very much, says, we in the South see Kamala as the female version of Keir Starmer. Good. It's good of you to join us. A vicious, half-wit lawyer who will do what the deep state wants. I think that's fair. I think she is a kind of a.
He's a gift.
Yeah,
and so is he in a way. Okay, he shows that he has no moral scruples whatsoever.
None at all. It's and that's a kind of an interesting thing, is that Starmer, Harris, and Waltz are the worst kind of petty tyrants, in that they're continually thinking about how to crack down on people, and basically for every kind of misdemeanor and indiscretion, threaten them, terrorize them, take away their money, and then indeed lock them up. And they're all thinking about that. So now that's where the fraudulence, because you have this guy Waltz, who pretending that he's this down home guy with nice guy, hunting, shooting, fishing, and he says, I'm going to tell the government to mind its own business. Now, of course, that only pertains to the issue of abortion. Now, this is a guy who set up a snitch line during COVID as governor of Minnesota. He set up a snitch line to rat out your neighbors. Now, what kind of a person, what kind of a governor, what kind of any person sets up a snitch line to encourage people to rat out their neighbors? That's how they think, and then they play this populist thing. Hey, I'm tell the government, mind your own business. Yeah, but apparently, whether you go out to get a milk for your cereal, that's apparently enough to get you reported to the authorities.
Yeah. State always knows better at the end of the day.
Right. And then here we have a Stone River who says, wait, let me go back. I'm wondering if the net will be to underscore Trump's anti-America first stance when it comes to Israel. But interestingly, no one has really pointed this out, and you can't point it out, but which is a very important issue, which is, how can you be America first when in reality you're Israel first? And that's the case, I think, with Trump and with Trump supporters.
Yeah.
But that's it. I mean, it's like, they're all, oh yeah, I'm America first. But we need to do everything that Israel wants because it's Israel. But if it's not really doing anything good for America, then what?
Well, I mean, Israel has universal health care, so Americans
are. Well, exactly. They've got that.
Israel has trade restrictions against American companies, but there are no trade restrictions against Israeli companies in America.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Let's see if there's anything we can address.
Oh, not my monkey, not my circus. Who got that one in here? Here we go. That's it. Nie moje małpa, nie moje circus. It's a Polish saying.
Not my monkey, not my circus.
Yeah, I love that phrase. I actually have taught Russians the phrase. The Russians actually use that Polish phrase. They just love it so much. Okay. Nie moje małpa, nie moje circus. It's not my monkey, it's not my circus.
Let's see. This is the part that's really hard because reading those things, these comments, the tiny lettering, tiny lettering of white letters against the black background, which I just find almost impossible to read.
Yeah, I see something even more sinister than Obama or Clinton in Kamala. She's indeed cunning, also called as. Well, that's how she was conditioned. That's what this entire political class is conditioned that way.
That's right. That's exactly right. Right.
Don't fight in the chat.
Don't fight. It's very funny when, yes, it's always entertaining when they get people start fighting. It's not even anything to do with us. They're just fighting among themselves.
George needs some jeweler's glasses. Okay, that's a unique comment.
Jeweler's glasses.
I see. Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Now I'm a slow guy. Okay, I got it. Yeah. Okay.
Again, apropos of Kamala, says W.W. Storm says, all of a sudden she's for medical debt forgiveness and helping people get homes when BlackRock is buying up every home. Unbelievable.
So Kamala Harris is going to take on BlackRock, right? See, this is this mythology they're feeding.
Of course.
What Kamala Harris will give them a tax break to continue what they're doing. That's what she.
Mark Hockridge says Sky News Australia is 10 times better than Sky UK. They do allow criticism of certain Western puppets. That's an impression. I only catch it occasionally. Sky News Australia, and
well,
there's pretty good stuff there.
I see the clips on YouTube with that.
Yeah, that's what I do as well. Yeah,
Australian woman that she goes after wokeism and Kamala.
Yeah. I know. Yeah,
very
I know the woman you mean.
Very smart.
Yes, she's very good. Yeah.
And people in Australia, it's pronounced Maryland, not Maryland. Okay, they always make that mistake on Australian time. Maryland, no, it's Maryland.
China, yeah. Let's see.
Blackadder. Oh, kind of a huge fan.
I never watched that.
Huge fan of that. I love that. It's really interesting. When I was growing up, it was like Monty Python. That was just the cat's meow for my circle. We just loved Monty Python. We'd never seen anything like it. You have to understand that in those days, American culture was really hermetically closed, and we only considered American stuff. And so we came across this British humor, and we just blew our minds. We didn't understand all of it, but we liked it.
But the thing is that, most I think British comedies didn't really make it in the US, other than through an American version. So there was the famous "Till Death Us Do Part" in Britain, which was then remade into the American version. I think "All in the Family," but that was an American version, so they didn't take the British thing and run that, but they did it in America. So the Archie Bunker, became the sort of the British Alf Garnett, but they had Archie Bunker. Now, I think the British one was much better than All in the Family. But in terms of kind of, the American comedy that really became a cult thing in the UK was the Rowan and Martin Laugh-In, which again was very innovative, a very novel humor. You never watched it, Peter?
Well, I mean, it was funny, but they never really caught on. I mean, they kept getting canceled. Okay?
They kept getting canceled, but for a while, everybody in Britain was watching it. I mean, everyone crazy.
I didn't know that.
But you're right. It eventually kind of fizzled out. But for a while, I mean, it was just everybody had to watch it. You know, so like it was the same with the Laugh-In, and you know there was whatever time it was, everybody had.
Well,
to watch.
I mean, my point is now is because of Netflix and HBO and all of that, you can get all kinds of stuff from around the world. But when I was coming up, we were not exposed to any foreign culture whatsoever.
Right.
And if we did, just as George pointed out, it would be Americanized Mexican culture, Americanized. You know, it'd always be. It's like Tex-Mex. That's an American version of Mexican food. That's why they call it Tex-Mex. Okay.
Right.
And now that's changed, obviously, because so much more access. But
right. No, that's right. But it's still a kind of a to the extent that it catches on, it's very much a boutique cult thing.
Oh yeah,
a minority of people like Yes Minister, which was a good show, but a very, very small group of people in the U.S. would appreciate the humor of Yes Minister. You know, again.
Well, I mean, since you bring it up, I mean, I watched quite a few episodes of it, but I got burned out on it pretty quickly. Okay, there were individual episodes I thought were just absolutely brilliant, but watching one episode after another, I got I didn't have enough affinity with it.
Right.
Okay?
No, I think that's right. I think
But
that's exactly right.
The wit, I mean, the dry humor and all that, I really, really like that. I think that's what, when I was in California, when this was all going on, I was in high school, and it was just, we had kind of like an informal Monty Python club. I mean, it was like shown at 11 o'clock at night on a local station. Okay. And it ran once. Okay. Yeah. And so, I mean, you had to watch it because in those days, you would never see it again. Okay. You didn't get it on tape or anything.
But again, there's something it is very English, and you have a lot of the references, the cultural references to English things. So if you're not living in England, you know, you just don't get the
well, I mean, what happened was somebody came out with, I think it was an American publisher, the Monty Python book. And so one of the guys in our group, he got the book. And so they explained all the references to us. I mean, and everybody was like, wow, I thought that was about the First World War. No, that was about the Second World War. The war is a big theme in Monty Python. And so they kind of, you know, like a Mac, that's a raincoat. Okay, that's what they call it there. I mean, it was kind of a cultural exploration.
Yes.
So, I mean,
I was just thinking when you
I've said it before. I mean, when we were growing up, TV serials were awful. The content was okay, but the production value was so cheap, and we knew it was cheap. Okay, so it's kind of reversed now. It's kind of reversed where the content is not as good as the production.
Right. No, I think so, but I'm not sure the content was really that great. I mean, I'm just thinking of some of those comedies of the 1960s. I've forgotten them. Green Acres or whatever. I mean,
that was surreal. That was weird. I mean, I look at it. I watched one recently, like 2 years ago, and I just thought, wow, that's what we were watching. That's weird. A talking pig. Wow, that was surreal. No, I'm not thinking. I'm thinking more like the A-Team and stuff like that. Okay, Dukes of Hazzard and that kind of stuff. Okay, which if you look at it now, I mean, you think, you know, that was the cheapest possible television ever made. Okay, I mean, even when they blew up a car, you knew it was already a derelict car. You already knew it was blown up. I mean, they just blew it up again. Okay, so. Right.
Yeah. But the funny thing is when you see some of the you know, like British police shows again of the 1960s, you know, you can sometimes catch them on YouTube. It's so cheap that, let's say a car is blown up, you don't actually see anything blown up. You just hear a big noise. Whoa! Hey, where's the car? I mean,
Well,
they didn't have the money to blow up a car.
Star Trek is mentioned here. That's a fascinating story. I mean, all of the different iterations of it. Some of them really, really good. Some of them really, really awful. I always take issue with people say the original was the best. No, it wasn't. Okay, because its production value was so poor. But you see the Gene Roddenberry's vision through the first series, and it continues out through the different iterations. I was just watching Strange New Worlds, which is, I really like it because it kind of doesn't take itself too seriously. Discovery took itself way too seriously. It was politically correct and all that. Someone asked me about it. I said, that series, which they poured tons of money into, I never liked one character. I never felt any affinity with anyone. The Strange New Worlds, after the first episode, I like these guys. I liked these guys, okay? And they don't disappoint, okay? And the thing is, whoever ran that iteration of it, they said, look, this is a cultural icon. Let's not get too stuck up about it, because they actually kind of, in a mild way, kind of make a fun of themselves. And for Star Trek fans, in the original series, they had Captain Pike, and he was kind of this, how did Captain Pike end up that way in that futuristic wheelchair that looked like he was imprisoned? And he's the centra. So people, I like the people that run the franchise because they know people like it and they remember things. And I thought, oh, this is about Captain Pike. Haven't heard about him for like 50 years. Okay. And they have his hair up like this. It's a total joke. And he makes a joke about his own hair. That's what I kind of like about it. And the writing is pretty good. So I didn't think we'd stumble on Star Trek here. Sorry.
So Dead Man Walking says Roger Stone has Nixon's head tattooed on his back. Yes, he has. It's yes, very kind of strange, but okay.
Look, Roger Stone, he's just a brand. That's all he is. He's a he's a snake oil salesman. Yeah. That's what he is. I mean, but what I always say in his defense, he never says he isn't. He doesn't deny what he is all about.
Yeah, okay? I agree.
I give him a pass.
No, me too. And I have to admire his ingenuity, to find all sorts of ways of making a living, because he somehow, he makes a living. He writes these odd books about sartorial elegance. He writes books about how Lyndon Johnson had Kennedy killed. Whatever. He's always finding some way. In a way, it's what I kind of admire about America, the sort of American kind of ingenuity, not just sort of, give up and feel sorry for yourself. It's okay, well, let me find some new angle. I'd lost this gig. Let me find some new gig to do. And I think, Roger Stone kind of embodies that.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, here we go. I knew this was gonna. Oh, now this kind of Star Trek talk is. I'm sorry, but the point about the interesting thing on Star Trek and the originally Klingons, et cetera, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. That's what they've done.
Yeah. So S.C. Dillendam says what George is leaving. I've already missed that. Oh yeah, what George is leaving out is that the perceived Kamala is an implicit bias of New York Times type. It's a spontaneous generalization of their own attitude. No, I absolutely agree with you. I mean it's not anything I'm leaving out. I absolutely agree. I think that's exactly what it is. And then here's a question, which you may know the answer to, Peter. What happened to Napolitano's show on YouTube? Is that been canceled? I don't know. I mean, I don't.
Somebody's breaking news here. I noticed before George and I convened that Alistair Crook usually has the Monday morning slot, and I'm a real big fan of Alistair Crook, and I couldn't find it. So because he records it early in the morning.
Right.
People put it out pretty fast. I get to watch it in my afternoon. I haven't seen it yet, but then we're doing this right now.
Right. No, but yeah, I just wonder whether there's an issue with YouTube with Napolitano. I mean, do you remember when you watched them on YouTube?
Let me put it this way, everybody. Everybody will get my drift. About 3 months before Tucker got the boot at Fox, I would go to work and I'd say, how does he stay on air? How does he stay on air? And my team, I guess I can't say I make it obligatory, but I was strongly suggested to my team, watch Tucker, okay? And my she's on maternity leave now, but Anya, she watched it every single, and we would talk about it when we were at work. And she would even say, how does he stay? How does he stay there? His views on Ukraine, for example. And I just said, I don't know how he stays, and he didn't stay.
Yes. Right. No, that's right.
The judge got a week suspension. Can you elaborate, please? What, Apple? What?
Is it? Let's see if there's elaboration.
Oh, well, I just checked YouTube. We're live streaming, George.
No, we are. Says,
I just saw your live stream.
That's like, so it says Croaky says Judge Knapp's last live stream was 5 days ago, and I don't think he has said anything about being off for a while, and he usually does. And then something. Richard says, sounds like Bull Napolitano has never been demonetized. So I don't know. I mean, that was.
All right, I don't want to speculate here. Okay.
No, I don't want to either. So anyway, I think our time is up. We're always very entertaining and a lot of fun, and the dogs are just they've had it. I mean, this just isn't good enough.
Because of the frustration,
you got to up your game. They're saying, look, you got to up your game
because of the frustration surrounding the tip jar.
The frustration exactly.
Decided to take their fury out on Skippy, and Skippy is the most gentlest, quietest, gentlemanly dachshund ever. Okay, right. And I had to take him out of the fray.
Right. That's exact. So anyway, thank you very much. Thank you everybody who has joined us. Thank you for all of your comments and all of your questions. Always very interesting. And we will be back doing this next Monday. And of course, I'm back tomorrow, Tuesday, 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Please join me. Until then, thank you. All the best. See you soon. Bye.